Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2024 PVN debate among Luray Council candidates. I'm Randy Arrington, publisher of Page Valley News, and your moderator for this evening's candidate forum. We did label tonight's event a debate, but it will follow along the format more so of a forum this evening. The Luray Council has 3 open seats on the fall ballot, and voters may cast up to 3 votes for Luray Council among the 4 candidates remaining in the race. After being first to get her name on the ballot, Wendy Temple Holtzman dropped out of the race earlier this month, leaving the 4 gentlemen we have here tonight. We have to my left the challengers, Chuck Butler and Robert Spencer, and the incumbents, Jason Pettit going for his 2nd 4-year term, and Joey Sowers, I believe, your 4th 4-year term. Page Valley News has published both Q&As and one-on-one interviews, video interviews, with each candidate that is here tonight. And you can find them on our YouTube channel under our Page Valley Living series or at pagevalleynews.com under the Luray News category. Tonight we seat the candidates side by side for one last public appeal to the voters. We're conducting tonight's candidate forum inside of the second floor conference room inside of Jenkins Hall here at Laurel Ridge Community College in Luray. And we'd like to take this opportunity to say thanks for allowing us to utilize this beautiful facility. Laurel Ridge Community College is your gateway to 4-year colleges and universities. Students who graduate from Laurel Ridge with an associate's degree and a minimum grade point average may obtain guaranteed admission to more than 30 of Virginia's colleges and universities. Transfer and save with Laurel Ridge. Visit laurelridge.edu/transfer to learn more. That's laurelridge.edu/transfer. And we are recording this 2024 PVN debate on Monday, September the 16th. It will be airing on Wednesday, September the 18th. The format and rules for tonight's forum are very simple. We'll give each candidate an opportunity for an opening and closing remarks. In between, we will have a series of questions. During each segment, candidates will have 2 minutes to respond. During a quick round question, they will have only 30 seconds to respond. Candidates will be addressing their remarks to the camera, which represents our audience. So let's start tonight by allowing each candidate 2 minutes to introduce themselves. We're going to start with the challengers here. Mr. Butler, you go first.
Thank you. My name's Chuck Butler. I grew up in Luray. My dad ran Butler's Pharmacy at the corner of Main and Broad. I graduated from Luray High School, class of '82. Go Bulldogs. I then went off to Shepherd College and got a Bachelor of Histories in 1986, and then went to George Mason School of Law and got my Juris Doctorate in 1989. I passed the Virginia Bar exam in 1990 and have been practicing law in Virginia since. When I first came out of law school, I was practicing in Winchester for 3 years, and then I practiced down in Halifax County, Virginia for 7. In 2000, I got the opportunity to come back to my hometown and practice law here. I've been doing that since. My wife and I raised our 2 sons here. I've got to say I'm very proud of my 2 boys. My oldest, Charlie, or Trip, is a captain now in the Air Force. And my youngest, Thomas, is a captain in the Marine Reserves and works for a solar company in California. I'm here because I've always believed in giving back every place I've ever lived, whether it was Luray, Winchester, South Boston, or back in Luray. I'm a member of the Luray Lions Club. I've been on the United Way board in both Halifax County and Luray. I've been involved in my church, Luray United Methodist Church. I've been involved with the Boy Scouts of America for, well, if I count my youth time, 40 years. Between being an adult leader, I'm on the Luray Council of Boy Scouts training staff, and still involved with the Boy Scouts now. But in looking around and trying to decide what I could do to give back, this seemed to strike me as one of the things that would allow me the best opportunity to get involved and give back. I think one of the things you all need to think about as you're deciding who to vote for is how much the person is going to be able to do for the county or for the town in this position. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Now, Mr. Spencer.
Hi, my name is Robert Spencer. Recently, I got involved with the Town Council here is to support our community. Have an ongoing relationship with a lot of organizations in our community. Everything from the free clinic to Choices, Page One, Arise, Life Center. I've helped a couple times. There's a new one out that just helped recently. It was called Community for Page. There's a big need out here for community citizens, and how we support them. The community groups is a big thing for our council to do, I believe. I think it'd be a good avenue for me, to the council, to the community leaders, especially the ones who work for the organizations that I mentioned. I'll also police the police department. I took a ride along with the policeman. I believe the town council has done a great job with their police department, and I think fire departments too, local fire departments. They need the equipment to do the jobs, the training, and of course, the pay. Everybody gets paid. So I think the pay should be what other towns do around us, and I think they just had a new pay raise recently. So, and finishing it up, I heard affordable housing, and of course, the more jobs coming in. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I think I'd be a good member of the community here, council here, just get a bridge between us and the community.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Now, Joey Sowers.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you, Randy, my fellow candidates, and the citizens of Luray. I'm Joey Sowers, and I'm seeking re-election to the town council. I was born and raised here, and after college, I married my college sweetheart, and we moved back to Luray and started life together. We now have 2 wonderful kids who are thriving in our local school system. We serve together as a family in our church, Mount Carmel Regular Baptist Church. In my profession, I do management consulting, serving the needs of small and medium international companies. I help them analyze their financials, their operations, and their customer feedback, as well as their learning and growth. And from there, we come up with an action plan and come up with clear, measurable objectives that I help them implement. I've also served for the past 12 years on the town council. In that time, I've served with some of the finest people I've ever known. And it's these experiences and these influences that shape the way that I serve on the town council. I can personally attest that Luray is a great place to live, work, play, and serve. But I also recognize that's not the case for everyone. So there's more work to be done, and that's why I ask for your vote this November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sowers. Now for Jason Pettit.
All right. Thank you, Randy. Thank you for watching. Those of you that are out there, and the candidates as well here, glad to be a part of this tonight. My name is Jason Pettit, and I have served 1 term on council. I want to first extend my thanks for the citizens of Luray elected me 4 years ago. I appreciate the support. I've worked hard. I've taken the position very seriously, and hope that I've helped to make some changes for the better. I've listened. I've paid attention to what the citizens' concerns are and what they would like to see done. For those of you that may tune in to the council meetings, either coming in person or now that they're live streamed, you'll see that I'm very adamant about keeping our budget in check, government spending. I was one of the only council members in the last couple of months here ago to vote no against the meals tax. There's things here that I think with our town that financially, how it impacts people and everything, we've got to do things the right time and what people can afford, and as I said, watch our spending as far as the town. But just as my fellow councilman Joey said, Luray's a wonderful place. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I as well have grown up here, raised my family here. I've worked out of town for many years, and I've worked here in the county and in this town for many years. And great place to be, and I want it to continue to be that, being that great place to not only work but raise a family, to feel safe and enjoy the people that surround us here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pettit. And now, gentlemen, we'll get to your first question of the evening. And Much like the national political scene, one of the top issues for Luray voters seems to be jobs and the economy. While new business and growth is often driven by private investment, what can the town of Luray do to encourage those investors to invest in our community? And we're going to start this question with Mr. Pettit.
Sure. Thank you. Just as Mr. Arrington said, and I agree, when you talk about economy and you talk about jobs, that is primarily driven by the private sector, those that are investors. I know that in my past experience, and one of the things that drove me to actually run for council, when I opened up my own private business after retirement from law enforcement, I ran into some of the roadblocks that are there in the process of going through that. I think this could be a little bit easier. I understand why some of those are there. It can't just be free for all as far as any business come in and do as they please. It will have an impact. But I think as far as government, this is both with us as a town and as well as our county, we need to limit those barriers that businesses face when they want to locate here, make that easier for them or work with them best we can. When it comes to jobs, it's the same type of way. Not all businesses bring a large job force with them. And when you look at Luray, when you look at our small businesses, which are critical as far as our employment numbers, we have to support what we currently have, and not to forget that, as well as opening the doors and making it easier for other businesses to come in. So there's lots of things out there that many times people don't think about that a business does when it comes to sign ordinances and all the other stuff that plays that part. But as we can work with businesses and make that a simpler process, that's critical.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pettit. We're going to continue to go clockwise around the table and go over to Mr. Butler.
Thank you. One of the things that I've been wondering about, Luray used to have an industrial development authority. It's disappeared. We don't have that as part of the town's government anymore. We used to. Why don't we have one? Why don't we have an economic development committee? The county has one, and I think the answer is because the county has one. We've abandoned that to the county. Well, the county doesn't seem to be pushing that as well as much as I would like. So I would like to see the town reintroduce both of those to the town government so that we have those things to try to help drive business growth and that then drives, you'll forgive me, drives job growth. So those, I think, are things that we could do as a town to try to get more businesses in here. I agree with Jason that certainly anytime you can stop over-regulation, that's a good thing. That helps promote business. But we have to also understand that we're competing for businesses with other localities. And so we need to see what other localities are doing. And we have to do at least as much as they do or more. Unfortunately, I think we've had in Luray an attitude at times that this is such a wonderful place, business will just want to come here. It's not that way anymore. We're competing with other places, and we have to know how to compete, and we have to do the things that are going to bring those businesses and those jobs in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. We'll go to Mr. Spencer now. And if you, at any point, if any of the candidates need me to repeat the question, just let me know.
Personally, I think to track businesses, you got to find out what the failure was in the past. You're learning from our mistakes. I think the businesses we lost recently, especially Washington Warrant, we got to know reason why they left. People, when they come in and invest in their money in this town, they want to know why people are leaving. The traction is, and I think we need to kind of get our own name, our own brand out here. We're known for the caverns in the mountains, but we need to know our character. We need to know what people want to buy here. If I go to Ocean City or something like that, I want to buy seafood. But actually, when I go to Luray, if I come to Luray, I was looking for some kind of mountain food, like a Cracker Barrel, something to identify with our what we are in Luray, our town, a small town. I think small town hospitality has a big figure of that. How we treat people. If you have an attitude that we're not happy, we have a sad town, they can feed off that. But you have a town where people see people are happy and be neighborly and loving each other, we'll get more businesses that way and we get more tourists that way. So just figure out what's going wrong and we can figure out how to fix it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Spencer. We'll go over to Mr. Sowers now to finish up on this first question.
Yes, first of all, we have to have the fundamentals right. And I think we as a town do a good job of that and making sure our water and sewer infrastructure is in good shape. We are playing some catch up, no doubt, as you'll see if you check out our annual budgets. But we are getting back on track with those things. Further, services that are essential to a small business or even larger is high-speed internet. Now, as a town, we can do less with that, but we can certainly work in conjunction with the county to help make sure that we have a good plan in place for that. Frankly, one of the biggest things that we need in order for a larger business or even a small or medium business to come here is housing inventory. So we have been fortunate to have, for us, a housing boom as of late that's going to provide housing for those potential employees of those potential businesses. And one of the biggest things we can do is make sure that we have reasonable tax rates, because no business is going to want to come to a place if the tax rate is so burdensome that the opportunity doesn't exceed it. So those are just some things that come to mind that we can do internally. And then likewise, we can, I firmly believe that with a targeted, effective marketing and advertising plan that we can reach out to businesses of all sizes in the DC metro area and show them a new definition of quality of life. As we were talking before the meeting, many people define quality of life by having all these restaurants and amenities around, but then they'll have to drive for hours on end to and from work. Well, we live in a place that might not have quite as many of those restaurants and the like, but what we do have is quality, friendly services, and you don't have to drive through 2 hours each way. So what we need, it would be wonderful and a huge blessing for our community to have more jobs here to give people those shortened commutes so they can spend more time in our community with family and friends. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sowers. We're going to go now to our second question. Another big issue among local voters, as well as the national political scene, is housing. Whether it's short-term rentals, planned neighborhood developments, the lack of affordable housing, high rental rates, the demand for more options, more workforce housing, rising real estate values, accessory dwelling units, whatever the issue may be, what do you feel is the biggest issue with local housing currently, and how would you address it? And we're going to start this one with Mr. Spencer.
Affordability. That's a big issue we have with our residents now. It's hard to make a minimum wage job and afford these house prices as we are. And houses availability. If we keep on putting Airbnbs in, I know they're profit to the town at times, but we're going to have houses go up. We can afford these houses. Personally, I can understand myself. Also, lost track of time.
That's all right. That's all right.
Working with developers, I apologize. Working with developers, the price and bringing houses down so they can more people afford it. We can't have Northern Virginia people come here and build houses way price or price range. I said, encourage the council, work with developers, grants, just make everything available and affordable to our locals. Apartments are great, I agree, but when you have dogs or cats, and just in my neighborhood alone, everybody has a dog or a cat. So the thing about it is working with our community leaders, working with our developers, just get prices down where we can afford it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. We'll continue to go clockwise and go to Mr. Sowers here.
I may not be that old, but I'm old enough to have seen some ups and downs in the housing market. And I think what we're experiencing right now is a unique time where there is certainly a boom where many houses are being built in our community. But unfortunately, that's not leading to lower prices. Those economic forces are frankly outside of our community. It's a nationwide issue for affordable housing. But I firmly believe that we need to remove any impediment upon developers so that they can build those houses now. Because yes, the house might not be that affordable now, but we're going to have that house within our town for the next 100 years if it's well cared for. So that's going to provide that growth that we need. It's going to provide long-term or even mid-term that employee housing that we need. And again, as we've seen with these markets, they go up, but they also go back down. And that's a great time for locals to be able to invest in housing. Frankly, in the short term, there's not a lot we can do to actually lower housing prices because as a town, we don't set the market. But I believe that market will correct itself. We recently did pass legislation or an ordinance to be able to provide a seatbelt, as I mentioned in my interview with Mr. Arrington, a seatbelt to the Airbnb issue because we understand the concerns that citizens are making their voice known about, and we're taking those concerns seriously and still providing an avenue for people to have an Airbnb in our community, especially if they're going to be renovating a home, investing in it, providing revenue that's going to help us to keep our taxes reasonable in our community, but while also protecting neighborhoods. And that's what I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sowers. Now for Mr. Pettit.
Yes. I agree. I believe affordability is one of the biggest challenges. It's a challenge that we are not facing alone here in Luray. Just as Mr. Sowers said, it's a national problem right now. Housing in our country, not only in our town. The biggest thing with living here that I see, I know that, and I've been fortunate, the first home I bought was, I think, right around 1990. At that time, I was competing with other local buyers. And what I mean by that is the homes that were on the market, it was fellow people in Luray who were either looking to upgrade or maybe somebody who had moved here recently and was employed here or retired here and looking to buy. And the challenge we're faced with today is our younger people, our first-time home buyers, are not competing with fellow local first-time home buyers. They're competing with buyers that are out of the area, whether it be Northern Virginia that is buying a house here just as a weekend place and then are going to rent it when they're not here, or whether it be someone even out of state. We have addressed that, passing that new ordinance to restrict and limit more of this short-term rental. The other thing that we approved, it's been at least 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, the accessory dwelling units. I was one of the first applicants in Luray to actually go through that process years ago and took an outside accessory building in a property that I owned and completely remodeled that, made it a living space for my mother-in-law. She lived there for years and loved that. And there was some tweaking that we did as town council with that accessory dwelling ordinance to actually streamline it and make it simpler than what it was back years ago when I had gone through that same process to encourage using space, available space, other structure on the property to be living space. So we're working on it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pettit. And now for Mr. Butler to wrap up this second question.
Thank you. There are really two issues here. One is affordability and one is the short-term rental issue. I've got to say, Randy, you and I had a conversation about the council approving the special use permits for the short-term rentals, and I said that I was a little dismayed that it seemed like the council was very concerned about getting sued because they had approved some, and so they were afraid to not approve more. And I was very gratified at the last council meeting that the town attorney said exactly the same thing I had said for a year, that no, each of those is individual and you can deny them if you are not being arbitrary and capricious and not being discriminatory. And so he said exactly what I've been saying for a year, and I was glad to hear him say it. So I really do think on the short-term rental issue, we have to look at each application and say, okay, does this fit, or do we have too many in this area already? And that's a reason to deny it. We already have enough of those on this street or in this neighborhood, or maybe this isn't the right kind of a neighborhood for that. So there are some things we can do there. As far as affordability goes, again, the market is been inflated, and that's not unique to Luray. But there are a few things we can do to try to get lower cost housing built in this area. The council was talking about modular units at the last one. That's a way to, as opposed to stick-built houses, they're usually cheaper, and we can do some things to push that and try to get developers to do those things that will help bring those prices down so that people will have more affordable housing. So again, yes, it's a market issue, and the town council doesn't control the market. but there are things we can do to try to help out with that. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Butler. We will move on to our third question now. Let's see here. One of the largest departments in the town of Luray in terms of both employees and overall cost is the Parks and Recreation Department. Residents take pride in their many parks, from the Hawksbill Greenway and Inlawn Park to Ralph Dean Park and Lake Arrowhead. What do you think the Parks Department is doing well, and what would you like to see them do better? And this question is going to start with Mr. Sowers and go clockwise.
Sure, thank you, Randy. I think our town of Parks and Rec has done a wonderful job of getting a number of our infrastructure that was in need of repair and refurbishment back up to par. I think any parent that lives here with children can attest that our new playground set out at Ralph Dean is a tremendous asset to the community. We have countless events. For a town our size, it's really incredible the number of events and the amount of recreational outdoor activities that we have in our community, and it's truly an asset. As I was mentioning before, quality of life can be defined many ways, and I think having those outdoor recreational opportunities is one of the finest things that Luray can do. Some areas of improvement, we do need to start reducing the rate of increase of the budget for that department, and I think we're going to see that now as things are getting back on track, that our capital improvement plan for that department has been getting caught up. We're going to see that budget inflation reduce back down to reasonable levels. Some other things that we could do is start looking at some of the longer term plans that's in the comprehensive plan for things that the community actually wants. Reach out and do some community engagement, see what types of activities or what type of infrastructure they want. Of course, many of you know we recently installed 2 new pickleball courts, and we've been receiving rave reviews so far from the pickleball community, which was much bigger than I thought it was when this process started. And that's what we need. We need that community engagement. So you tell us what you would like to see. We see what we could reasonably do in budget. Some things we can, some things we can't. And then we work together to create a town that we can all be proud of. That play aspect of the work, play, live, and serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sowers. Now for Mr. Pettit.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, our Parks and Rec department, I agree. I think they do a wonderful job. Is there room for improvement? Sure there is. I feel that way about every department within the town. I think some of the challenges that we face with Parks and Rec is we have such beautiful parks, but with all that comes quite a bit of maintenance. And when we look at Lake Arrowhead, when we look at the Greenway, when we look at, Inlawn Park, all the things here that we are involved in with that, they're beautiful parks, but that takes money, that takes man hours and everything to do that. So I think we need to be smart as a town as we move forward, that any additions or anything we make to any of these facilities that I just mentioned, that they be additions that don't require a lot of maintenance. The more wood type structures, other things like that. I know I see a lot of the 6x6 posts on the Greenway, which were beautiful when that was first built. A lot of those are starting to rot now and have some decay, and we've got a beautiful Greenway, but we can't get ourselves to the point that we keep adding to our parks with different items or expanding them and get to the point that we can't maintain what's currently there. Lake Arrowhead this summer has been a challenge. It's been a challenge with both help when it came to trying to find part-time help as far as lifeguards and things like that this summer. We ran into struggles there. The workforce just wasn't there. And in the overwhelming numbers of people that are coming to enjoy our parks, especially Lake Arrowhead, that are out of the area. And we welcome people. We welcome people from out of the area. We are that little tourist town, but at the end of the day, too, we got to make sure we can control it, and also that our locals, who are our local taxpayers, have first priority as far as using that and the ability to use it, and not driving up on a weekend to a park they can't get into because it's overran. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pettit. And now we'll go to Mr. Butler.
Thank you again. I agree with Mr. Sowers. We're unique in a town our size having the facilities that we have, and that's a wonderful thing. Whether it's the Greenway or it's Lake Arrowhead, it's one of the pocket parks we have. Not many towns our size have that degree of facility. Ralph Dean, I don't want to forget Ralph Dean, or have the events we have. Again, we do a fantastic job with that, and the Parks Department does a fantastic job with that. We do have to be careful about making sure that it gets used appropriately. I know there have been some issues with different of the shelters, people reserving them and then showing up and having other people that have already taken them over, and those people don't want to move out of the way or whatever. I actually had that happen years ago when we had reserved a shelter for a birthday party and showed up and there were 5 people sitting in the shelter. And when I was like, we reserved it. We've got the little note tacked up over here saying we reserved it. And they're like, oh, well, when the rest of your party gets here, we'll leave. And I'm going, but I need to put up the stuff for the party now. You need to leave now. So I realize that's an issue and we need to do a good job of that. We also need to look at the parks to see what the money they can generate for their own maintenance. Whether that's fees for swimming at Lake Arrowhead, or that's if we were to build some kind of a water park out at Ralph Dean area, that people would have to pay to get into, those kinds of things that, they could help sustain themselves. And so that's always something we need to look at. But again, I think the Parks Department does a fantastic job, and we are very, very lucky to have the facilities we have.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Now we'll go to Mr. Spencer.
I'm going to look at one way. Our Park Recreation Department provide entertainment for our kids, our children of our community. There's a lot of people out there say, there's nothing for the kids to do here. Trust me, there is. Ball field, Ralph Dean Park. I coached up there for 17 years. It's for boys and girls, adults. We have adult the tennis court that you're talking about just now, pickleball, Little League softball, Little League baseball, football, cheering. There's a lot of things going on at that park. There's a trail, and again, a medicine station, I don't know what they call it now, but it's a playground for the kids of all ages. The Greenway itself, what a blessing that is. I'm coming to a town, you see the Greenway is well maintained. Grounds crew do a great job on both parks. Applaud them for what they do. They're always on top of the game. It provides exercise. It provides people to go out and talk. It's like the old corner store where people used to gather with all the day. Hey, I want to talk to my friend Jason here. We're going to go out and talk to the Greenway. Walk to the Greenway and talk. We're get ready to meet new people, to greet new neighbors. Our parks are big of our community. We have tournaments here, where the baseball comes up here, and softball, it attracts tourists in. There's a lot of good things about our park. Bad things, like you said, Lake Arrowhead is one of the things we have problems with. Like this is what he said, the shelters. We, a couple times I've been there this couple of years, in a couple of months, getting checked in, make sure you're part of that shelter. I mean, that's too bad we have to do that, but that's part of life, I guess. Be nice, don't be mean, but get your shelter and appreciate what we have. The recreation of the park, we have a blessed thing here.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. All right, thanks you. We're going to now go to a quick round question. This is something we've kind of added in to kind of mix up the tempo of the forum here, and it's going to force the candidates to think a little bit more quicker on their feet. No particularly wrong answers within reason, but they'll have 30 seconds to answer this question here. If you could wave a magic wand and bring a new business, industry, or attraction to the town of Luray, what would it be? And we're going to start this one with Mr. Butler.
I've said to a number of people, as much as I would like to say a restaurant, I'm actually going to say a hardware store. I think we've got a lot of people in this community that do construction work, and they have to travel to Front Royal or Northern Virginia or someplace to get equipment and get supplies. And so something, a Home Depot-esque hardware store would be something I think would be very useful to this community.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer, we're going to go right on around clockwise.
Some kind of plant, to be honest. I work at Bridgewater, Purdue chicken plant, not plugging it, but it provides a lot of jobs. A lot of, not even a lot of jobs you have to go to college for. A lot of jobs for driving a jack or production. A lot of jobs you have good pay. Be honest, a lot of good jobs coming from a chicken plant or a plant like that.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sowers here, thank you for that.
Yes, Randy, if I could wave a magic wand, it would be wonderful to bring back manufacturing jobs, certainly. Something that may be more realistic is a small to medium-sized office complex that has numerous tenants within that, where there can be some white-collar jobs, both lower, mid, and upper-level positions available for while we're sitting now, graduates of Lord Fairfax Community College, and for all of our children to have something that they can grow into instead of having to move out of the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sowers. Now, Mr. Pettit.
Yes. I've got to go with the restaurant idea. I think that with our town right now, I hear that a lot from our locals. We have some great restaurants. I realize that. Many times, if it's a Saturday night, you're competing with the tourists that are in town to get a seat at the Memslin or some other places like that. But just a sit-down, full dinner type a restaurant here in Luray, if we could take Hawksbill Diner times 5 in our town, I would love that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pettit. That is our first quick round question. We're going to have one more of those, and we move on now to our fourth regular question here. And that question is pretty straightforward. Do you support the extension of the Hawksbill Greenway out to Yeager Springs, even at a cost of $2 million or more? And we start with Mr. Pettit on this.
Yes. This question comes right on the heels of what I was speaking of with Parks and Rec. I would love to see it happen. Been out there with the Greenway Foundation as we've looked at this and is trying to come up with money. And it's a beautiful place. I would love to see that happen. But at the end of the day, the numbers have to make sense, and it has to be something that we can maintain. Just as I said, as we continue to build with our Parks and Recs, that means more maintenance and more care. The other thing that does concern me with Yeager's is the remoteness of it. We've got to make sure that we've got security and things in place that place does not get damaged or anything happen after hours. So there's some challenges still to come with that, but I would love to see it happen if the numbers work out.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pettit. And just a reminder, this is a regular question, so each candidate will have 2 minutes on each question.
I want to start by saying how much I enjoyed Joey's interview out at Yeager. I was very glad to see that. Again, I was a history major in undergraduate school. I consider myself a bit of an amateur historian. I love Yeager Springs. I've been out there many, many times. Joey said it was that he didn't really realize it was there when he was younger. No, I've known it was there for a very long time. I think the first time I was out there, I was in 4th grade. And my friend Rod Graves, I think, actually drugged me out there one time. But so I've known about it for a long time. I would love to see it work. Now, I do agree with Jason. The numbers have to work. You have to actually look at the budget and see how can we manage this. But I think we ought to bend every effort to make those numbers work. Because, again, that certainly is a major part of our history in this town. This town probably wouldn't be here but for the ironwork industry that was going on back in the 1700s around here, and it's something that not a lot of people realize. And so I certainly, again, I consider myself a historian. I certainly would love to see that happen, and I would bend every effort to make that happen, but in the end, you do have to make sure the numbers work. We can't bankrupt ourselves to do it. Thank you,
Mr. Butler. Now for Mr. Spencer. Let's get that out there.
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, sure. Do you support the extension of the Hawksbill Greenway out to Yeager Springs, even at a potential cost of $2 million or more?
I love the Greenway. Don't get me wrong. I've used it many times for running and walking and meeting friends and some 5K races and 10K races. It's a good 5K is a good place to have a fundraiser with these races. Extending it, no. I don't think it's necessary. I think where we're at now is good. I think this pressing more, it just takes out what we have right now. I think not many people want to walk 6 miles, let alone 3 miles. So Anyway, I think it'd be a bad idea for the town right now. I think we have more pressing matters to worry about. If she ain't no, that would have been my answer. No.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Spencer. We're going to go over to Mr. Sowers for our last comment on this question.
I certainly appreciate what my fellow candidates are saying regarding the budget, and I would echo that at a full rate of $2 million being borne exclusively by the town, that would be a very large pill to swallow. But I believe in the generosity of our community. I think we have a lot of people that are very passionate about this project that will get out and beat the streets to try to raise some funding for it outside of just coming through our tax base, which I think that's the last resort we would want to use for this project. As Jason mentioned, certainly there is going to be ongoing maintenance. Even if we had a genie bottle and we could rub it and wish for a fully funded project, there would still be ongoing maintenance long after the project is completed. But as far as whether I want to see it or not, absolutely. I would love to see that during my time on the Luray Town Council. Again, I believe in the passion and the generosity of our community to make this happen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sowers. We will go on now to our next question. Our fifth question here. With the influx of ARPA funds from the federal government, the town of Luray has been able to make improvements to its water and sewer infrastructure. Now that those funds are coming to an end, what was the greatest accomplishment in improving the water and sewer system with those federal funds, and what still needs to be done at this point? And this question starts with Mr. Spencer.
I'll be honest, this is not one of the greatest things I know about. I'll be honest. I mean, I'm really big and help the community, but I think, personally, what the water system is doing good. I think I don't see many drain covers flowing over in the highway anymore. I think the biggest thing for the town people is knowing how they're paying the water bill. Be honest, it varies. They checking the meters, not checking the meters, estimating it. Then the bottom line it comes down to is economics. How can I afford and what am I being charged for? Is it correct? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go to Mr. Sowers next and continue to go around clockwise.
Yes, we've done a lot with the ARPA money. I give credit to my fellow councilman here, Jason. He's pressed that from day one, water and sewer, and it's absolutely right. I mean, the most fundamental things we do as a community is to provide these essential services, including water and sewer. I mean, it doesn't get much more fundamental than that, what we provide. As far as the greatest accomplishments, I think it's probably been two things. It's working towards decreasing the I&I, the leakage that's going into our sewer system, so where we're taking in and treating more water than what we're actually producing from the tap. And it's also the metering. So we now have, if you've looked at your manhole, you'll see that there's a little button looking thing on there, and that's a wireless transponder. So we've actually reduced the expense of employees having to go around and manually check each person's meter every month. So those are just two things that I think have really improved through ARPA. And also, just as an aside, with additional funding, we could actually take that metering system and automate it to where it wouldn't even require, where it would actually give real-time feedback. And that's on the long-term agenda as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sowers. Now we'll go to Mr. Pettit.
Yes, I'm going to echo some of Mr. Sowers' comments. The ARPA funds there with the infrastructure. We've had several things that happened over the last couple years that, thank goodness, the ARPA funding was there. We had a lift station problem right out here behind us here at Laurel Ridge. The way the elevations sit here, all the sewer in this area, Walmart food line, the building back here has to actually be pumped to get across Cave Hill to get to the wastewater treatment plant on 340. That lift station wasn't, even though we didn't know it at the time when ARPA funds first came, that's something that started to fail. These are huge problems, lots of money when you go to replace those. But that lift station's been replaced. There was some line problems up here with old sewer line that was starting to collapse. It's also been replaced. The meter replacement, as you mentioned, which is an automated system that the old days of the meter reader that had to physically go around to look at the meter, now that is sent electronically. So we've got the savings on the labor side. And there's probably things that the public doesn't see. our new street sweeper. We've had a street sweeper for years and years that was failing. Unless you're up at 5 in the morning, you probably don't see that running. But I think our main street and our main corridors through town that sweeper runs kept up very nicely. Also a sewer pump truck, which was purchased with that. And those are issues that when you need it, you don't always have time or want to take the time to wait on a contractor. Also the savings that we enjoy as a town when we can do services ourselves instead of not having to reach out and pay contract services. So that's just a small scratch of the surface of what the benefits have been with ARPA and how we've applied it to infrastructure. And I'm proud of what we've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pettit. And we'll end this question here with Mr. Butler.
Thank you. Let me quickly explain something because I didn't understand it when I first started hearing it. But I&I is where water is coming into the sewer system from outside. A lot of us don't realize that many of the sewer pipes actually run either under or through the Hawksbill Creek. And so the water from the Hawksbill was actually getting into those pipes and was then having to be treated at the sewer plant. If we can solve that problem, and we're working on it, then that's more facility, more gallons that the sewer plant can treat that is there available for the growth within the community, as opposed to having to treat creek water that really doesn't need to be treated or shouldn't need to be treated. So that's something that the town has been working on with the ARPA funds, and I think is something that we will continue to need to look at. But long term, we're also going to need to look at the sewer plant to make sure that we have capacity there for growth. We want to have some growth in Luray. We want to have controlled growth, but we want to have growth. And so that's something that at some point you're going to run out of existing sewer facility, and so you're not going to be able to allow growth. So that's something we need to look at and continue to deal with.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. And now we're going to jump to our second quick round question. The candidates will have 30 seconds to answer this question, and we will be starting with Mr. Sowers. Do you and I'll admit ahead of time, gentlemen, that this is a question that I'm sure you could go on for longer than 30 seconds about, but I kept it to 30 seconds for certain reasons. Do you think the Luray Police Department, in terms of staffing and costs, and I would mention that the police department, along with Parks and Rec, two of the biggest departments in terms of employees and in terms of cost. So do you think the Luray Police Department, in terms of staffing and cost, is too big, too small, or just right? And we'll start with Mr. Sowers.
I would say our department is just right as far as the size. Now, is it expensive? Yes. We've seen something over the past several years with some of the rioting and the animosity level towards police officers where many fewer are willing to join. So the costs have gone up, but we're just right because we have double coverage during all hours of the day. We have a wonderful chief in Bo Cook, and we have wonderful officers that serve alongside him.
Thank you, Mr. Sowers. Mr. Pettit?
Yes, I agree. I believe our department is the right size. We are faced with the challenges of operating costs, which have increased dramatically. And over the last 4 years that I've been on council, I've seen that rise each year. The problem is we are not alone. We're not in a bubble here in Luray with those challenges. With my career being in law enforcement, I see firsthand and talking with other agencies that I worked with through the years that they are suffering from the same problem. It's hard to get personnel. Departments are competing with us, trying to hire and pull personnel, and that's what's driving costs, as well as costs of equipment, patrol cars, all of that. We're not alone.
Thank you, Mr. Pettit. I'm going to go to Mr. Butler.
I've got to say, I think as far as manpower goes, that we're at the right spot for the town our size. If Bo Cook came to the council and said, I need more training for my people, or I need more equipment, I would have to seriously consider saying yes, because I think those are important things. We can not have an officer that is not trained adequately. I don't want some smart-ass attorney like myself getting some case thrown out because the officer wasn't properly trained.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Now, Mr. Spencer will wrap up this quick round question.
I believe it's well worth the cost. I think what they provide to our community is safety first. A lot of things going on lately with the they had a barricade over by the school. They were put in a really bad situation. You never know what you're approaching anytime you pull somebody over. You got to go in cautious. Hoping for the best, prepare for the worst. So I think we have a good chief police, a great chief police, and I think he trains his people well and support our police station full force.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Gentlemen, this will be our last question prior to going into another quick break and then our closing remarks. And as you well know, taxes are something that are on the forefront of all citizens' minds and probably one of the biggest issues when it comes to local government. So this question starts out with, would there ever be a scenario where you would support raising real estate taxes? And this one starts with Mr. Butler.
Would there ever be a scenario where I would consider increasing real estate taxes? It would have to be an extreme situation, but there are things that a town is required to provide. And so, yes, if something happened, something dreadful happened, and we had to provide certain services, we have to have a balanced budget, so that would mean we would have to get the money from somewhere. And so, yes, there could be a situation, but it would have to be extreme because, again, I certainly am somebody who believes in limited government and that we as a council have to be good stewards of the money that is provided through our tax base. And so, you know, again, I would be very reluctant to do it, but yes, certainly there could be a situation where that would have to happen. I wouldn't be happy about it. And in fact, I would agonize and gnash my teeth, but yeah, it could happen.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. We're going to go to Mr. Spencer next.
At this point, no. I think it should not be an option. We're losing too many people from our local citizens moving out of town because they can't afford it here. Buying a house, if you raise more taxes on the houses, locals would not be buying these houses. They'd be about people from out of town, out of state. Where they'd be renting it out more than that people can afford. I know a house when I first moved down here between $600 and $1,000, and I'm pretty much guessing it's like $1,500 to $2,000 to rent a house now. No, raising the taxes, we got to find some other way. We can do this as a community work with the council. We got to work together and not working apart.
Thank you. We'll go to Mr. Sowers next.
Something that I've pushed quite a bit on the council over the past couple of years is looking at other ways to generate revenue and actually to offset some of the costs that are more by just by virtue of living here. You know, someone just existing here getting taxed so heavily that they can't afford it. Instead, looking towards those taxes that would more impact visitors to our community and take more of a burden off of our citizens. I think that's the route that we would go. That would definitely be the first thing I would look at if we had to raise more revenue rather than increasing any real estate tax. Of course, as Chuck rightly said, we are legally obligated to produce a balanced budget. So there certainly is a scenario where you may be forced to, but I certainly think that that would be the last place that we would want to look to raise any type of costs to increase our revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Sowers. Now, Mr. Pettit will wrap up this question.
Yes. If many of you follow the town council meetings, you'll know that I'm not a big fan of raising taxes at all. The last time we had a real estate tax increase, I was not in favor and I voted no, just as I did with the most recent meals tax increase. I agree with Councilman Sowers that we need to look at other ways to do it. We did that recently with TOT tax increase, which is primarily tourists that are staying and lodging. And there was a cigarette tax increase, but the tax that's going on to our citizens, I think we have a responsibility as a council to look at ways that we can save or maybe ways that we can control spending. I know just a couple months ago when we were getting into the new budget, and there was a comment that once the budget was passed, it's like, well, we're going to, start taking a look at revenues. And I made the comment in open session, I think we need to start looking at spending. If we can't control spending, we can never control revenue. We'll always need more. I think the other challenge we have here is our county taxes, I feel, are high for for the area, and when you look at the median income, family income here, that the burden that we have as Luray residents to have a high county tax rate and then a Luray tax on top of it. I know that struggles for people, especially who have bought a home long ago, may be retired, still have that home, but it has appreciated in value, and those taxes have increased to the point that people struggling to keep the home that they've been in for maybe 30, 40, 50 years, and that's a challenge. So unless we were in dire straits, I would not be in favor of raising real estate tax, and I would be the same way. I'd be looking at other measures for us to find that income, or other measures where we as a town need to watch our spending and cut back in to offset that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pettit. As we prepare to close out this evening's candidate forum, we will allow each candidate to make a closing statement in just a moment. But first, we want to once again thank Laurel Ridge Community College for allowing us to host this forum in this beautiful facility here in Jenkins Hall in Luray. Explore why 98% of students recommend Laurel Ridge Community College to family and friends. Visit with Laurel Ridge virtually or in person by scheduling a group tour or a 101 meeting. Discover high-demand careers and financial assistance opportunities to cover your tuition and fees. Grow with us at Laurel Ridge. Visit laurelridge.edu/visit to learn more. That's laurelridge.edu/visit. And now, candidates, you have one last opportunity to share your thoughts, your visions with local residents, convince voters to cast a ballot for you, and bring up any issues that we may have not discussed this evening. And we're going to start our final round here with Mr. Pettit.
All right. Thank you, Randy, for putting this together, for giving the a forum for the public to get some information. I'd just like to say as we wrap up that the time on council is an eye-opener. At least it is for me. There's a lot to learn when you from the outside looking in, and I'd been in a lot of council meetings on the other side of the bench there that's in council as a citizen, fighting for something that I wanted to do that maybe there were some roadblocks in place or whatever. And you get over to the other side and you understand more why some of that's there. But anyway, this town has been a wonderful town for me to grow up in, from a child here to an adult. My son, my wife, and my son being able to raise a family here has been wonderful. And I don't want Luray to lose that. I know that all of us here want to invite business. We want to see some change. We want to see some growth. But at the end of the day, I still want this to be my hometown. And I want it to be your hometown. And I think we've all, as we've traveled throughout America, I don't know how much you may vacation or where you go, but I know my family's been to places before that we loved to visit, and we had a great time while we were there, and it was entertaining, and maybe it was tons of places to eat and things to do. But it might not be where we wanted to live. And we've all heard that comment before, well, hey, that's a great place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. I don't want Luray to ever become that. I want us to be the great place to visit, but an even greater place to live. And I think that's important. You know, we have the tourist industry. We need to keep that alive. We need to try to benefit as much as we can from it, from revenues and for other businesses and everything, being able to make a business and employ people tied with the tourism. But at the end of the day, if I've got to make a choice between what's best for a local or what's best for a tourist, I'm going to look out for the local. And I want to keep this town a great hometown and a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pettit. And now we'll hear closing remarks from Mr. Butler.
Randy, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank the citizens that are watching us for them giving us their attention and allowing us to make these pitches to them. I want to say one of the things that I think you need to look at as you're deciding who to vote for is, do you feel like this is a person that has a vision for Luray? And is this somebody who, as there are struggles and there are issues that come up that maybe don't go your way or whatever, is this somebody who's going to react reasonably? Is this somebody who's going to act professionally and with some maturity? And I think that's something I certainly bring to the table. 34 years of practicing law now. I think if you talk to anybody in the court system, they'll say Chuck comes in prepared, and Chuck is a professional and he acts appropriately in the courtroom. I also think one of the things I've learned in scouting is that the only constant in the universe is change. And you can either lead change or you can get run over by change. And I think we need to be in a situation where we're leading the change, that it's the change that we want to see happen to our community, that we want steady but controlled growth, that we want to bring jobs into this community so that our citizens have jobs. They don't have to drive 2 hours down to someplace in Northern Virginia to find a decent paying job. And then that helps make the town better because we're going to have a better tax base and we can do more things for the town. So that sustained, controlled growth is what we're all looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. And now closing remarks from Mr. Spencer.
First of all, most of all, I encourage everybody to get out and vote. We need people out there. Have your voice be heard. Voting is a big part of your voice. And have your needs be known. That's what the town council is, to solve our problems for its citizens. Personally, I think our town, we decided to stop treating our tourists like a red carpet treatment and just bring out the welcome mat. You're welcome to stay. We hope you love it here. But when y'all go, we have to take our community first, our citizens first. We treat our tourists just like friends, but we treat our citizens like family. And that's how we look at this. I want to plug one thing real quick. Just recently, we had 2 suicides in the community. One was a 14-year-old girl from the high school. Unfortunately, Friday, one was a 25-year-old man. A tragic situation. But if they've known, or if they didn't know, this organization called 988. It's a place you can call for suicide crisis lifeline. It's a place person you can talk to. Person you get your feelings out. Not stressing so much. Get encouragement. Find somebody you can see. There's always hope. I think Luray, if possible, as we treat our citizens and our community, there's always hope. We have hope for the future, and there's no reason to end your life like that, right? Let's love each other, take each other, encourage each other. There's hope. Thank you for your time. And like I said, your vote, your choice.
Thanks, Mr. Spencer, and we'll end up with Mr. Sowers.
Hey, it's been great being with you all tonight, and thank you to all who are listening. Just want to speak briefly on inheritance. So I'm smack dab in midlife, and rather than going into crisis mode, I'm thinking a lot about the inheritance that I'm going to leave to my children. And of course, that's part of that is financial, to where I set them up for a bright future, get them off to a solid start. But it's a lot more than just financial. It's what values am I going to instill into them? It's what passions and drive am I going to help foster in their lives to launch them into their life. Psalm chapter 127 says that children are a heritage from the Lord. It says, like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. And I only have 2 kids, so maybe my quiver is less than full, but within our community, we're blessed to have many children. And just as I'm asking these questions of myself, what inheritance am I going to give to my kids? These are the questions that we should be asking as a community. What are we going to leave to the next generation? Are we going to leave them a community with crumbling infrastructure, books that we're just barely hanging on by a shoestring because we don't have the finances to cover any extra services or expenses that are needed, or investment in repairs and maintenance? Are we going to leave them a community that's thriving, where we have a balanced budget, solid infrastructure, and yes, some level of growth? I echo the sentiment of many of my fellow candidates here that we don't want to have such outsized growth that we turn into just another tourist trap on the side of the highway somewhere. That's not what we want to be. As Jason said and Chuck said, we want to be a place for our citizens first. So just leave with you tonight. What inheritance do we want to leave to the next generation? I would love to be a part of finding that out and implementing that, and I appreciate your vote on November the 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sowers. And I want to give a hearty sincere thank you to all of you gentlemen for participating here tonight. I think participation in the process has meant a lot in informing the voters. As we mentioned earlier, we've had Q&As with all these gentlemen, as well as one-on-one interviews that you can find on our YouTube channel. The video interviews and the Q&As are on pagevalleynews.com. So again, thanks to all 4 candidates who participated in tonight's forum. We wish them all well at the polls between early voting, which starts September the 20th, up to Election Day. PVN also looks forward to hosting next week's debate, which will be between Stephanie Lillard and Ron Vickers as they seek the office of Mayor of Luray. And we'll be right back here in Jenkins Hall for that. And that event will air on YouTube on our website around noon on Wednesday, September the 25th. We'd also like to thank Eleanor Arrington for her work behind the camera tonight. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which you can find on YouTube at Page Valley News. And we'll see you all next week here at Jenkins Hall, where we'll continue our 2024 election coverage. Good night, everybody.